Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at the deeper meaning of Mercury in the sign of Capricorn. I think it's a good time to rewind and look at our Mercury from the Planets in Profile series that I did, Mercury in Capricorn. I'm also doing this because at Nightlight, I make things a week in advance. And this first week of January, as I'm making content for this week's videos, we are in the midst of getting absolutely slammed from the Kickstarter reward delivery process. And so I'm rewinding a few episodes this week as we just sort of dig ourselves out of a hole. My normal production schedule will be back next week, but I've tried to select videos that will be really relevant and poignant for this week's astrology. Thankfully, it's a little bit of a quiet week, but Mercury's ingress into Capricorn is really significant this week because we have had Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius for several months. And so seeing that dignity change, that sign change, Mercury leaving a less complicated place in Sagittarius, moving into Capricorn, where it doesn't have any great dignity, also doesn't have any debility, and has some reception with Saturn. It's a good time to just notice the shift in Mercury. You will notice it right now if you pay attention, because when a planet changes signs after being in a long sign for a long time, it's more noticeable. So a good time to refresh on this. I hope you'll enjoy it. Remember to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. I also want to point you over to the website's live events page because we have another webinar coming up. If you go to the live talks page under events, you will see that I'm giving a talk on Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries called Encounters at the Edges of Reality on January 16th. That's next week, 7 to 9 p.m. You register, you'll get the link to attend the live webinar. If you can't make it, you'll get the recording afterward. So I hope to see some of you there. Normal content production schedule will return next week. So I hope you enjoy these rewind episodes, get something good out of them. And then also we will be running a little bit more on the Mars-Neptune trine. You're going to see a rewind episode from late October when that same trine came through Mars's direct motion. We're going to revisit that in a rewind episode on Friday. That's going to be a really good one to tap back into because now we're getting Mars returning to some of where it was. So stay tuned for that later in the week. Enjoy this one today, and we'll see you again soon.
Hi, everyone. This is Achyuta Bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we're going to talk about the meaning of Mercury in the sign of Capricorn. So this is part of a series that I've been doing called Planets in Profile. I've taken Venus and Mars through the 12 signs so far. Now we're working on Mercury. I try to do this as Mercury is moving through the signs consecutively and publish them at the same time during the year. Sometimes I get a little bit behind. So it's December 2020 as I'm recording this, and Mercury is moving through the sign of Capricorn. Also, if you're listening to this right now, I am just about 8-9 days left in my Kickstarter at the time of recording this before the end of my fundraising drive. We're looking to get to 1,000 backers by the end of the year. That is we're just a little over 100 away from reaching that goal. You can click on the link in the comments section and pitch in and help me meet my goal of 1,000 backers. If you appreciate this channel, you subscribe to it, you like the content, it helps you as a student of astrology or maybe as a spiritual source of nourishment for you, then consider pitching in and supporting me and a staff of people that I support through the donations that we collect. I also just want to remind you that we have gone through a lot of different talks in this series. So you can look back and find a talk that you're looking for if you want. If you look in my playlist, you should be able to find the Mercury playlist. So Capricorn, what can we say about Mercury in the sign of Capricorn? Well, a few things about this. This is the earthy, feminine, cardinal or tropical sign of Saturn. So we have to blend all of those qualities together as we understand Mercury and Capricorn. We have an earthy, feminine, tropical sign, and its domicile ruler, it's the planet, the deity, the god that lives in that temple is Saturn. So what that means is that we have to interpret Mercury through the lens of Saturn, through the feminine, earthy, tropical lens of Saturn. And what we get with that is going to be a Saturnine quality and a kind of Mercury-Saturn blend, but a little bit more of that earthy, grounded, practical type of Saturn, as opposed to the airier Saturn that you get in Aquarius, for example. We'll take Mercury through Aquarius later, and you'll see some of the practical differences. In order to interpret Mercury in Capricorn, you need to look at the position of Saturn in the birth chart in relation to Mercury. I can't teach that in a simple video. It's something that I unpack in my one-year course, but the gist of it is that Mercury is a house guest in Saturn's home, and wherever Saturn is, that greatly qualifies the kind of Mercury Saturn blend that you're going to get, which is very specific to each individual chart. Nonetheless, you can still say some things very generally about Mercury Saturn combinations and how they show up. Mercury is not debilitated or in any natural dignity of its own in the sign of Capricorn. And so you really do need to look at it as a kind of Mercury blended with Saturn, earthy feminine Saturn in Capricorn. So I'm going to try to explain how Mercury and Saturn blend in this placement by showing you a bunch of examples of people and kind of talking about them. Saturn can mean the gravitas, the heavy, weighty, serious, mature qualities Saturn can point to, or Saturn can also point to those that are like old or dark or decayed, or sometimes heavy in a darker and more difficult sense, or sometimes too authoritative, authority versus authoritarian. That distinction sometimes comes up. Insider versus outsider. Those come up with Saturn. Also, remember, Saturn represents people who are cast out, black sheep. Kind of the alien otherness, and that sense of there being something that's other and far away and distant and alien and strange or foreign is also a big part of what Saturn represents in ancient astrology. And so sometimes you see that combined in very interesting ways with Mercury in Capricorn. So anyway, let's go through some examples now, and I'll just give you a sense of how this works. So you think about someone like Michelle Obama, and Michelle Obama has her voice and her presence when she speaks. Think about that, because a lot of the way you can see Mercury is in how someone speaks. She has a serious, mature, disciplined, measured quality. Very Mercury and Saturn, Mercury and Capricorn, Saturn sign. You also have women who have just these strong, powerful, but very serious presence, and also they may embody something of, they look or they feel or they sound classic or classical, or sort of like standard, like an old standard. There's a few that meet this definition. The clout and the seriousness, and the Shakira is an interesting example. Also, James Dean is an interesting example, where there's this kind of like serious. Sometimes it's a little heavy or other, but yeah, it's like you have personalities that carry that weight of like tradition and seriousness, and then some that are going to embody the sense of being alien or outsider. So, for example, David Lynch is a really good example. David Lynch has this quality of being sort of, he's like heavy, serious, dark, mature, and totally like otherworldly. That's his, and just kind of weird, and that's the Saturn actually. You have Anthony Hopkins, who has this kind of, if you think, I'm not trying to say that a person is the roles that they play, but a lot of the roles he plays and the way he acts is very serious and measured and steely, right? It's that Mercury quality. Edgar Allan Poe, the dark, heavy, serious poet. Also Pope Francis, people who wear the mantle of authority very well, that sense of the heaviness and the graveness of the position. You have also, in that sense, a little bit like Michelle Obama, like the stateswoman. You also have people who are going to have carry that heaviness and the gravitas of Saturn. You're going to feel it more in very traditional societal ways, like Jeff Bezos. He's like obviously this kind of entrepreneurial, like, he wants to rule the world. It's like Amazon. You've got Ronald Reagan. I think I mentioned Ronald Reagan, just this kind of classic conservative kind of quality. You have Tiger Woods, who has this very steely, determined, mechanical, serious, very accomplished mental game when it comes to golf. He's known as a golf genius. So you also have people who sometimes, they're criticized, like, you're too serious or something like that. And that's not always fair. For example, Greta Thunberg, the young woman who's an environmental activist. And she also has that sense of like, she means business. Like, look at her eyes, you know what I mean? Like she she has things that she thinks are very important, and that sense of importance and the seriousness and kind of mantle of responsibility that people carry is often quite a lot. But you have people who are irreverent, serious, but like irreverent too, like heavy and weighty, and sometimes the irreverence is kind of crude as well, like Howard Stern, for example. Samuel L. Jackson is another example. If you think of just he's kind of just has this badass quality, that's always how, and he's got this kind of toughness and that sense of being real serious and a little crude sometimes too in some of the roles he's played and stuff like that. He does that really well. He can pick up this kind of irreverent, I don't care what you think quality, and that's often a Saturn quality. It's a quality of outsiders. So Samuel L. Jackson has that kind of voice. You have people like Alan Watts, who's this kind of renegade but very serious and measured Zen philosopher. You have people like Nostradamus, who's has this very heavy but prophetic and otherworldly voice. Stephen Hawking is the same way, where he has he's this kind of scientific genius, but he has this like robotic voice that's like from another world. I mean, those things are very common. James Dean, he's like classic and looks like this just iconic. He's like an iconic looking person from a certain era, but he was also like this kind of rebellious, conflicted figure and kind of like heavy feeling around it. Jim Morrison is the same way. Again, similar qualities, kind of the heavy, serious, grave, dark, Saturnine qualities, but also kind of alien and an outsider. David Bowie obviously fits that as well. Sometimes you get the heavy, serious qualities becoming more authoritarian and like rigid. For example, Mel Gibson, and some of the things that have come out of his mouth, and also Joseph Stalin. Not that I'm comparing the two of them exactly, but and then finally, I feel like what you can add into all of this is the sense when it comes together is it can come together really artistically as well. Like some of these people I've mentioned have been artists, but J.R.R. Tolkien, author of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, Mercury and Capricorn, it's this otherworldly fantasy realm, but there's something very grave and serious happening there. There's the battle for Middle Earth and this ring of power, but of course he was a child of World War I, so the the message that you carry that has that kind of gravitas to it, and it's heavy, but it could also be very otherworldly. Well, Bowie fits that role as well. He's kind of dark gothic space prophet or something. So anyway, I wanted to make sure we just covered a texture of Mercury and Capricorn because it's a really beautiful placement that's often misunderstood. So I would love to hear your stories. What is Mercury and Capricorn like in your own birth chart? I'd love to hear from you guys, hear your stories or someone that you know. And also don't forget my Kickstarter is almost over. We're just about finished. So help me rally and see if we can cross that 1,000 backer threshold. Really appreciate your support. And I look forward to making more content for you in the year ahead. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.